Okay, this is in our packets on page 7. So this is what we've all been waiting for and why we've been showing work, even when it hasn't required us to do a whole lot. Do be sure your Chromebooks are put away. Remember, on Monday, our Alex workbook check will be out of 10. So hopefully you're getting some topics done in Alex. All right, so 2-step equations. Up until now, we've been working on 1-step equations, showing our work. We did some review with fractions, multiplying and dividing them. Today, we're looking at 2-step equations. So they're giving you a general form here. It's going to be a coefficient, remember, something in front of your x plus something else here. So before, we just had x, right? Or maybe we had px, but not both, right? So it was either x plus something or x minus something equals something. We undid those with addition and subtraction. Or it was px equals something or x divided by something, which is really its coefficient as well. And so we undid that with multiplication or division. But now, since we have both together, we're going to have to do both operations to undo it. So first we locate the variable. So here, our variable is x. Then we need to do the the addition or subtraction to remove q. So q is what we call the constant. The constant is just a number that does not have a variable attached to it. So we have to get rid of the constant. So q is the number with no letter attached, we'll say. Is that in layman's terms? Oh dear, I ran out of room. Number with no letter attached, sorry. That's our constant. Then, once we've gotten rid of this, we're just left with something attached to the x. So we're going to undo the multiplication and division to remove p. So this is our number attached to the letter. In other words, our coefficient. Okay, so whatever is in front of the letter, we call our coefficient. It's important for you to understand these terms because as you move on in math, which you have to get through Algebra 2 to get your high school diploma. As you move on in math, it's important to understand these terms because if someone says, well, first you got to get rid of the constant. If you don't know what a constant is, how are you going to know how to get rid of the constant, right? If you don't know what the coefficient is, then it's hard to combine coefficients when we get into combining like terms, right? Are you awake this morning? Okay, so first we're going to locate the variable. Let's look at number 1 together. What is my variable? Remember, variable is another term for letter. It is the unknown. So now that you know what a variable is, what is my variable in number 1? What is it, William? N. Excellent. So here is my variable. I have to undo everything attached to it, but until I get rid of this -1, I can't get to it. So I'm going to go to step 2, undo the addition and subtraction to remove q. Do you see how they are telling us what q and r is? So we have to remove this constant q. What is my constant here? -1. How do I make that 0? How would I make negative 1, 0? What do I have to do to it? Add it. Yep, I undo subtraction with addition. So whatever is being subtracted, I have to add. Now remember, whatever I add to the left side of the equal sign, I have to do to the right side of the equal sign. Notice I didn't write that +1 under the 4n. I wrote it below the -1. Because now when I go down my equation here, I have bringing my 4n down. -1 + 1 is 0. That's what we wanted, right? We wanted to get rid of that. And then 11 + 1 is 12. Now, looking at this, do you know what to do? Why not? We divide. So this is like our one-step equation now. After we get rid of the first step, it becomes one more step to go, right? That's why there's 2 steps. Step 1, add or subtract. Step 2, multiply or divide. So step 1 is to add or subtract. Step 2 is to multiply or divide. Okay? What's being done to n? How do we get rid of this coefficient? Must be multiplied by 4. So what do we have to do to both sides? The inverse of that, the opposite of that. We have to divide both sides by 4. We divide both sides by 4 because 4 divided by 4 is what? 1. So n, or 1n, is equal to, what's 12 divided by 4? You can give me your phone or whatever it is you're playing. Okay, but it's really obnoxious. Put it away. So n is equal to 3. So if we were to put it back to check our solution, like it tells us to here, we can think it through. What's 4 times 3? 12. Is 12 minus 1 equal to 11? Yes. Okay. Pretty straightforward, or we're still unsure? We're gonna do a couple more, don't worry. I'm hoping you get some practice in. Absolutely. All right. You can even do this whole page together. Number 2 is the exact same thing as number 1. Yeah, they're all 2-step equations.
No, I mean, like, it's basically.
Yes. The ish, yeah, except the negative numbers, exactly. All right. So how do I get rid of this 1? This becomes a constant, even though it's not written like that. We're going to subtract 1 from both sides. So notice how I wrote it below what I'm trying to get rid of. So this becomes 0. And I'm left with 4b. I bring down my equal sign. Negative 11 minus 1. Do you see how I'm going right down now? My signs are the same, so I'm finding the sum. What's 11 plus 1? 12. And is it positive or negative? Negative. Now, we have a 1 step. And just like over here, we're going to divide both sides by 4. So I'm left with 1b, which is just b equals, and instead of positive 3, we have negative 3. Remember our multiplication and division rules with integers. If our signs are different, our answer is negative. All right. How do I get rid of, well, first, what do I want to get rid of first in number 3? Good. If I went and tried to get rid of the 4, I would have to divide this whole thing by 4 right away, and we don't want to do that. I mean, we could, but we don't want to. So minus 2 from both sides of my equal sign. I'm trying to keep them all lined up nice and neatly. So 2 minus 2 is 0. 4x plus nothing is just 4x. What is 30 minus 2? 28, and in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm so relieved that is a multiple of 4, so I can divide easily. I'm gonna divide again. This is the same second step as we've had the last two problems. To get rid of that 4 in front of my x, I have to divide both sides by 4. So 1x equals 7. Excellent. And we got that 7 because we said 28 divided by 4. All right, what do we need to get rid of first for number 4? The -4. So how do we do that? How do we make that a 0? Good. We use the inverse. So 4 minus 4 is 0. I'm bringing down the 5v. I'm bringing down my equal sign. I have -54 plus 4. Remember, with our integers, when our signs are different, we find the difference. What's 54 minus 4? 50, and is it positive or negative? Negative, because my bigger number was negative. How do I get rid of the coefficient? Divide it. So this is 1v equals -10. -50 divided by 5. All right, what do I want to get rid of first? Adding, so we're going to add 4 to both sides. I'm trying to keep them lined up. You remember what we call this? That's our constant. We got to get rid of the constant. It becomes 0 when we do the opposite to it. So when bringing down, don't forget to bring down that negative sign. Equals negative what? What's negative 28 plus 4? Our signs are different. So 28 minus 4 is 24, and my bigger number was negative. Now I'm dividing both sides by what? -4. Be careful to include your signs so you get the correct answer. So m is equal to, good, and it's positive because our signs were the same. What do we need to get rid of first in number 6? That -2. We need to make it 0. So what are we going to do to both sides? Add 2, the opposite of it. So I'm bringing down the -2x. That becomes 0, so that's hasta la bye-bye. 18 minus 2. 16, positive or negative? It'd be negative because my bigger number was negative. Dividing both sides by -2. Don't forget those signs. So 1x equals questions so far. Remember, your first step is always to add or subtract. Your second step is always to multiply or divide. All right, page 8. Okay, we just have a couple more examples to go through, and then you are going to try pages 9 and 10. All right, how do I get rid of the -2? Good, I'm gonna add 2 to both sides. Remember, step 1 is to add or subtract. Step 2 is to multiply or divide. Remember, I often do things repetitively because they're important and you need to remember them. So I'm drawing my big line here. I'm looking to straight down my rows. So my 5x comes down. There's nothing to combine with it. -2 plus 2, that becomes 0, so that goes away. I bring down my equal sign. What's 23 plus 2? 25. Now, how do I get rid of my coefficient? My coefficient is telling me that x is being multiplied by 5. So how do I get rid of multiplying by 5? I divide by 5. Whatever I do to the left side, I must do to the right. 5 divided by 5 is, of course, 1. So x is equal to 5. And how did you get 5? Excellent. 25 divided by 5. So sometimes we forget, what does she mean by that fraction bar? Remember, that's division. We're showing division that way. What do I have to get rid of first in number 8? Good. So that constant over here, how do I get rid of that 2? I'm gonna subtract 2 from both sides. And of course I'm showing all my work, because it's going to get more complicated. Sorry. 2 minus 2 is, oh dear. That'd help if you could see what I'm doing. Yep, there. 2 minus 2 is 0, so that becomes 0. I'm bringing down my 3n. I'm bringing down my equal sign. Negative 19 minus 2. It's getting more negative. So it becomes negative what? Excellent. And I'm like, oh, good, another multiple of 3. I can divide evenly. So I'm dividing both sides by what? Well, I'm dividing them by 3 to get negative 7. There you go. Now remember, if you're unsure and you maybe accidentally divided by negative 21, you should see right away that it wouldn't get rid of your 3 like you're trying to. Okay, if you understand that you're trying to get the letter by itself, hopefully that will help prompt you to do the proper step. But you have to actually think it through. So if I just like start writing things like, oh, I see a negative 25, don't do this. I'm gonna do the opposite of it. Okay, well, and then if I'm actually thinking it through, I'm thinking, oh, that was plus 27 and this equals 0. That did not get me anywhere closer, right? So remember, we're wanting to get rid of the things next to the m's. So what should I really do first for number 9? Yep. Yeah. What is it? Well, we had a negative 19 minus 2. So when our signs were the same, we found the sum. If you think about it on a number line, we're at negative 19. Minus means to go left, so it's getting more negative. Good question. All right. So what are we doing to get rid of this 2? Subtracting that 2. So this is the same thing. We're bringing down the 3m. Oh, good. This does make 0, so it gets rid of it. I'm bringing down my equal sign. And so when I have negative 25 minus 2, I'm thinking 2 more negatives. So I'm adding 2 to the 25 to get negative 27. And then again, how do I get rid of my coefficient? Well, my coefficient means that I'm actually multiplying by the 3, right? So I need to divide by 3. Because it gets rid of it, right? When I divide by itself, it becomes 1. So 1m, we would write as m, equals negative 9. Do you see how knowing your multiplication and division facts is very helpful? What am I getting rid of first in number 10? That negative 2. So what do I need to do to make it a 0? Add 2. Combine it with its opposite, right? That becomes 0. So I'm bringing down a negative 3x. I'm bringing down my equal sign, and 25 plus 2 is 27. So this is very similar to this last one, right? Instead of dividing by positive 3, I'm actually dividing by negative 3. But it gives us our same answer because in both cases, our sign was different with our division. All right. All right, you have pages 9 and 10. Remember to try these out. It's very important. You have 16 problems. Remember, your first step, this is really step 1, to add and subtract. Your step 2 is to multiply and divide. But of course, you're always finding the variable. Get rid of the constant, then the coefficient. Okay? We got over 10 minutes. Try and get these done. We'll kind of review them slightly tomorrow.